I was working so hard in the weight room, and every weekend that we would go to a showcase or a workout for a coach, I could see myself improving, but those offers and everything, they weren't coming in like I was wanting. And
because what are they based on first?
Yep, it wasn't until I realized, maybe I need to work as hard on the ACT as I am on squatting or bench pressing or whatever it is. Your coaches are going to want a team guy versus a guy who's trying to put himself out there.
Yeah.
A coach can see that. And I think that it's important for you to put your team first, because once you get to school, it's all team, right? It's 38 guys working for one goal.
Hi, sports fans, and welcome to episode 8 of the Coaching Life podcast. I got to say, I am especially excited about today's episode because we have a special guest on today, and it is someone who is near and dear to my heart. And so we're going to jump right into this episode because there is so much to talk about in relationship to the recruiting process and growing up playing in youth ball and recreation ball and travel ball, and some stories that you're not going to want to miss. And so stick with us today because episode 8 starts right now.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Pat Martin. I'm here with my friend Chris Stewart. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be here.
Good to see you. Chris, we received a text this week, and I'm excited about it. I wanted to read it to everybody.
Let's hear it.
The text reads as follows. Been attempting to implement a different frame of mind while conducting practices this week. Kids has given me positive feedback. You are influencing lives. Trying to coach with the attitude of making it fun through the kids' eyes. A lot more fundamental drills while accentuating the positives and minimizing pointing out the negatives of each athlete in the drill. Trying to ask a lot more questions about kids' personal lives during water breaks instead of continually harping on what I feel they need to improve on. Positive reinforcement. You've helped me change my perspective. I want to thank you for helping me find another level of teaching that I never understood, never considered, connecting with young athletes on a personal level, treating them like family and less like a military unit. Chris and I have been talking about this concept of a player development program for the last few episodes of the Coaching Life podcast. And I know that there's probably a lot of people out there with different opinions on that concept. There's people that have reached out to us and said that they're really excited about it, want to know how to get it started right away. And there's people that's on the fence, not for sure whether it work or not, or how to get it started, or if it would ever be possible to get started. And then there's people that don't like the idea. They have reasons that it shouldn't work or couldn't work, and that's completely fine. And, Chris and I, we're not trying to force feed anyone our opinions or make you adapt to something or adopt ideas that you're not comfortable with. We believe in the player development program, and we think it would be something that would be really good for the kids of our communities. But if the worst thing that comes out of the Coaching Life podcast is that we're able to reach a coach or a player or a person and just give them a little piece of something that helps them become a better person or become a better version of who they are, then I think we would be happy with that. I'm confident in saying that's pretty much all we can ask for and all we can hope for. And we're not going to just do that with our opinions and ideas. Right. We're going to bring people on that have played the sports that we talk about, that have coached the sports that we talk about and have knowledge in those games. And hopefully that those experiences and that knowledge other people can use as they share it with us. And we have our first guest on the Coaching Life podcast today, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Chris, so that you can introduce him.
Okay, thank you, Pat. As Pat said, we wanted to bring in people who are out there doing things that we want to talk about. And one of the things that we desire to talk about here is the recruiting process and what that is like, and also what it's like to play ball in college. And so it is our privilege and definitely my honor to be able to introduce to you my own son, Brock Stewart. And he is here with us today to talk a little bit about his own experiences through youth ball, recreation ball, travel ball, the recruiting process, high school ball, and also now he will be a junior at Alderson Broaddus University, a Division II NCAA school in West Virginia. Hi, Brock.
Hi, excited to be here.
Good.
Yeah.
We have a lot of questions for you, and our goal is to have these podcasts last about 35 minutes or so. We've been around that time. Our last episode, our bonus episode, was a little longer.
Yeah.
But we're going to do our best to basically toss you the ball and let you run with it. All right. And I know I have a few questions myself. But I know, Pat, you're anxious. You gave us a list of like 10 questions.
Well, I never know what to expect or what you expect out of me, Coach.
Yeah. So let's let Brock talk a little bit. What do you got for him?
Well, Brock, I'll ask selfishly. This is a question I came up with because I think it impacts directly people in my own family. But I would like to know if you could just talk a little bit about your transition from playing baseball, say with a group of friends, a local baseball team, to transitioning to playing on a travel baseball team, and the differences, what you had to deal with, and things like that.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to play with about the same group of kids from the time I was about 7 all the way through high school. But it was about around 15. I was about 15 years old that I actually joined a true travel baseball team with the Midwest Marlins organization, and it was different because I was playing with a different group of people that I hadn't played with before.
Right.
That was 7 years of playing with the same group of kids, and it kind of sucked for me because part of the reason that I loved baseball and loved to play was because of that brotherhood and that bond with all my friends. But also, it was a huge step for me in getting recruited and going on to play in college. It seems like it's almost essential now to get that exposure through travel ball. And a little bit of the differences between the actual game is, it's every weekend is a tournament setting, and so in your school season or in your league season, you have one championship, versus travel baseball, you're going to have a championship every weekend, and you're competing every weekend. And I think that might be what helps you get that exposure and helps the college coaches see your competitiveness, because that's one of the big things that they look for. And so it was hard because it felt like at first it felt like maybe I was losing friends. But now I realize I wasn't. But it was a change. But I'm glad that I went into that, and it really helped me a lot.
How hard was it to make new friends with your Midwest Marlins team?
Well, going into it, obviously I was nervous, but once you get there, you realize that everybody there loves baseball as much as you do, and that was another huge difference, is that maybe on your high school team, you might have a few guys that are just there to play.
Right.
And they're just there to, have fun.
It might not be their primary sport.
Exactly. Yeah. And so when you get to your travel organizations, it's everybody's there 100% for baseball.
Sure.
And, everybody there was like how I was for the love of the game. And
so you come into something with a lot more in common.
Yeah, absolutely.
With those guys. And so it's pretty easy to make that bond.
You come in already, and you've already got something in common. Yep.
Would you say you still have friendships with those people that you played with in the Marlins?
Yeah.
And not only friendships, but now, by the time you were on your 18U team, every player on that team was a college commit. Mm-hmm. And so that 18U summer, which was after your senior year, that 18U summer was basically, it was a lot less stressful because exposure was unnecessary because you'd all committed to college. But a lot of those schools that those teammates committed to were schools that are actually in the GMAC conference in the league that you're playing in now. So you actually see those old teammates as opponents now.
Yeah.
So
and it's amazing to see not even the teammates, but also the people you play against. There's tons and tons of times where playing against teams from all around the Midwest area, and they're like, "Hey, you played for the Marlins," and I'm like, we played these guys in Canada or whatever it is.
You tell that story about the guy that ended up being a teammate on your college team.
So the last game that we actually played with the Marlins was in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis.
Yep. And we lost to the Windsor Selects. And I get to school at college that fall, my freshman year, and I walk up to one of the first kids I met and say, "Hey, we played you in the last game of the season."
Wow.
And he was a pitcher for that team, and he's a pretty good pitcher for us now. So.
And one of your
That's
roommates.
Glad, one of my roommates. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Small world.
It's really cool.
And he's probably actually listening to this podcast.
Probably,
because we're recording this. People don't realize we're about 5 episodes ahead, I think, in terms of scheduling them and launching them out into the public.
This is 6, I think.
And so by the time Brock hears his own episode, he's going to be in class for 2 weeks back at AB. And so there's a good chance that some of those teammates are going to, unless he hides it from them.
Thanks for the exposure, bro.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll give him a shout out.
While we're on that, could I ask questions not on the sheet?
Sure.
We talked in the last episode about how cool it was that one of your teammates, well, actually not one of your teammates, he was a senior the year you were being recruited, so you actually only got to meet him at your visit, but then later as a freshman, or I guess it was this past year, wasn't it? You got a chance to catch a bullpen.
Freshman year, yeah.
So one of the 4-year starter pitcher at Alderson Broaddus University, Division II school, small college up in the mountains of West Virginia. This dude, Randy Dobnak, has gotten a chance to, it was funny because in the last episode, we just recorded a couple days ago, I said he may here soon get a chance to pitch for the Twins, and it wasn't 24 hours later. And by the time this episode airs, he will have either done well and remain there or get sent back down.
Do you think we influenced that?
As of today, I would say so. The Twins probably heard this and said, man, we need to check this guy out. But what's really cool is we're expecting today to see news of him being called up to pitch for the Minnesota Twins. So tell us who this guy is, Brock, and what it was like to get a chance to catch him.
Yeah, Randy is I didn't know him as much as some of his other teammates because, like he said, he was a senior the year before I got there. But he, the first time I met him, I think was homecoming. He came back, and we were just talked, and he is extremely intelligent. He knows the game really well. He's really smart outside of the game. But then the next day we got to...
And I want to say that shows on the mound.
Yes.
Because he's not a power... he was a power pitcher in college, but right now he's crafty. Mm-hmm. He knows how to get hitters out.
Which
you can tell he studies the game.
It's one of the things we talked about was how he could throw the ball by guys in Division II, but when he's up in Major Leagues, he said... you can't throw the ball by Vladdy Jr. or
right.
He pitched against him.
Yeah, right.
But wow, I think that is a great point because I know there's a lot of coaches out there that they do things in games and in practice because they know it'll help the team win, but it won't necessarily help the team win at the next level.
And it won't help the player to excel at the next level that he may be wanting to go to.
So there you go, a college example of not doing that, right?
Yeah, so it helped him a lot to be knowledgeable of the game because he had to change his entire philosophy of pitching. But so I got to catch him once in a indoor live at bat bullpen.
So you're talking about live at bats inside the cage.
Inside of the cage, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So in the winter, the way we do it is there's 2 cages of live, and then there's a bullpen area, and so there's 2 catchers each cage, and so we just go in and out, and so I'm sitting there waiting because I see him warming up, and I'm like just sitting there hoping and praying that I get to catch him because it'd be pretty cool, and also because I also didn't want to hit off of him either, but
honesty,
yeah. So he got called in, and I go, same thing at every pitcher. I catch 5 warm-up pitches, and I go out, and I'm like, it's like, all right, what you got? And he's fastball, curveball, slider, changeup, split. I'm like, dude, I'm like, man, I've only got 5 fingers. What am I supposed to do? And so, but yeah, he came in, and I think the first 3 pitches he threw about broke my thumb.
Yeah,
he was phenomenal. You could tell that he stood out versus everybody else there. And but what stood out to me the most was that he could have very easily came in and had a hoorah with his buddies. He hadn't seen in a while, but he was the first person there, and I'm pretty sure it was a 6 a.m. practice. He was the first one there, doing his band work.
As an alum.
He was just a good old boy coming out and having some fun. But instead, he decided to be business there. And he was the first one there, last person to leave, doing work the entire time. And that's what it takes. And that shows now that he's getting a chance to play in the show.
Right. Hey, speaking of what it takes, one of the questions that I had, and I know I've talked with my son about this in the past, and I've heard other people talk about it, and I think it's kind of shocking to some people, but could you talk about your schedule as a college baseball player, during baseball season, and maybe how hectic that is?
Yeah. For different schools or different programs, obviously it'll fluctuate differently, and also the different time of the year. But college baseball is like a job, and it's not really. It takes a special type of person to want to endure that, and so, typically you'll have you can have a morning session, anytime 6 a.m. Anytime before 8, usually when your classes start. You can do that.
Morning session
morning
of what?
Session of, the difference, one of the big differences is that you're going to have 3 or 4 practices throughout the day.
Yeah.
It
might be a bullpen in the morning, or
it's not
weightlifting.
Just one team practice in the evening.
Yeah.
So, it could be 6 a.m. and you have pitchers and catchers. And then if you don't have a class at 10 a.m. or 11 or whatever, you've got individual work. You can go in with your coach individually, work on your hitting. Then you could have, you got your classes, of course. Then you have an evening session. That could be your team practice. And then, you got conditioning and weights. And that's in one day. You add that up, that's 4 or 5 hours every day, on top of 3 or 4 hours of class, on top of an hour or 2 of studying. And, it builds up. And it's, like I said, it's a job. And so it takes a ton out of you.
Sure.
But what I will say is that the reward outweighs the suffering a ton.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think that's spoken from a person that has a lot of passion for baseball.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to be there if you didn't.
No.
You couldn't make it that kind of, because I would agree. It's, we always tell kids all the time, it's going to be like a job when you get to college, but it's a fun job. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's one that you love.
Well, I think that's I kind of alluded to that in my theory that I talked about a few episodes ago, where, as we're kids, we play the game because it's fun. What Brock just described there wouldn't sound fun at all to an 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old.
Right.
But it's a different mindset. They've matured, and now you love that grind because you're looking for the reward on the end.
It's not hard to go into the weight room at 6 a.m. when you love to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the weight room for a second. One of the questions that you've asked, Pat, and we can maybe combine this with the question about what you're majoring in, because it's connected for sure. So your major in college is what?
Exercise science, with a focus in performance enhancement and injury prevention.
Okay. So I guess we can go back. We can come back later and talk about how that was important in your recruiting process. But how much strength training do your teammates do? Obviously, we know in a roster of 35 to 37 people, you're going to have some that are committed to it more than others, even in college. But how important is strength training as a college athlete?
As far as importance goes, I would say that it is essential for you to weight train and to do agility and some sort of cardiovascular exercise, obviously. But there's not a single school in the country that doesn't have their baseball team in the weight room, just because it is absolutely essential for that type of training.
Pretty much.
Not really much else you can say.
I mean, that's really it.
Bottom line.
Yeah.
As far as high school goes, it's starting to trickle in to high school more, and you see it more and more. But I think that if you want to,
let me ask you this: was your old man right when he was preaching to the to those high school players of what it's going to take to get?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
On 6 o'clock in the morning weightlifting days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I'm lucky to have had that instilled into me to weight train early. And so I think it's important to build that foundation. Like I was saying, with high schoolers, if you want to be on your baseball team, I think you absolutely have to work out in the weight room. But if you want to be great on your baseball team, then you have to put it on yourself to get in there and do the work.
Yeah. I would say that's just like any other skill that you practice for baseball. You're not gonna be a top performer if the only time you swing a bat is during team sessions. You got to take that time on your own and develop that swing, and you develop anything. But weight training definitely fits into that. Were there guys on your college team that came from a high school program that didn't weight train and were kind of shocked when they realized how much they were expected to?
There were, and you can tell.
Pitchers.
You could tell on the first day. The pitcher. You could tell on the first day that you can tell who didn't. Who didn't work out and who did. Just because
that's easy to see.
It's
like a sore thumb.
Very easy to see.
It's good stuff.
No doubt.
Let's talk about the recruiting process. I think a lot of people would be interested in that.
So I walked through this process with you, but I don't want you to answer in ways that you think I mean, just you take it, Brock. What do you think is the most important thing a player can do right now if they're listening, or if their parents are listening, and which I know I've got people reaching out to me already saying, this is really helpful. I can't wait till the next one. And people are asking about when are you going to talk about recruiting? So if you had a chance right now to know that there's a 15-year-old listening to this, or a kid coming into high school, or even a junior and senior in high school that's trying, what would you think the most important thing a player can do right now to help themselves get recruited?
First off, nobody wants to hear it, but you got to have the grades, because the grades is what's going to get you there. I'm
proud of you for saying that first.
Good job, Brock.
Well, I say that because looking back, I realized that you said if I could do something different, it would be focusing on grades more. Because what I was going through, I was working so hard in the weight room, and every weekend that we would go to a showcase or a workout for a coach, I could see myself improving, but those offers and everything, they weren't coming in like I was wanting. And
because what are they based on first?
Yep, it wasn't until I realized, maybe I need to work as hard on the ACT as I am on squatting or bench pressing or whatever it is.
Every point your ACT increases, your money increases.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And those 15-year-olds don't want to hear it, but it's true. But I think that the main controversy with travel ball also is you have to expose yourself, because you're the one getting recruited. And so I actually wrote down here in these notes my exposure versus being a team guy, and I think that in the long run, your coaches are going to want a team guy versus a guy who's trying to put himself out there.
Yeah.
A coach can see that, and I think that it's important for you to put your team first, because once you get to school, it's all team, right? It's 38 guys working for one goal.
Man, that's a great point.
It's an amazing point, and I think it's cliche. People toss that out the window because you hear it all the time. Be a team player, but I'm not shocked at all that you said that.
There are so many travel programs out there from a programmatic level don't have this mindset.
Right.
They will literally say, "Hey, you come to this program, and it's all about you. We're going to get you exposure, and then the kid comes onto the team, and they maybe play there." And of course, if there's 16 people on the team, they're not getting to play every day. They're not getting to play all the time. And so they're upset. They're mad because why? Well, because you sold this to me that it's all about me. It's all about my exposure. And you don't learn how to play as a team. And really, what happens then? That if that kid does get recruited, which a lot of times those programs are helping them get recruited, but then they go to college and they're not a very good teammate because they don't know how to be a good teammate. All they know about is me. Look at me. When am I going to play? Coach, what about me? And that's not what it's about. The majority of the time you're playing ball, that's not what it's about. But for this little window of time, we focus so much on you, individual, and your exposure. That's good stuff. I wanted to highlight that. That's good stuff.
There's lots of teams, in the summer, lots of travel teams that, they might have 18 guys that are going Division I, but maybe they're not winning as many games as they could with their potential. And I think that it could be because you've got 18 guys, it's 1 versus 1 versus 1 versus 18 guys is working to one goal.
Right, because at the end of the day, it's a team sport.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you want that exposure. Well, where do you see the most scouts at a tournament and the championship game? And so you want to get that exposure, then win as a team. And so I think that in the long run, my exposure or your exposure is going to be better if your team is getting better.
Look at the difference. I mean, just to stay on this point a second. Look at the difference in the way, and you got a chance to experience this on a district level 2 years in a row, and this feel. The difference in the feel. I mean, because you also were on a travel team that won tournaments as well. So you had several tournaments that you won as a travel team member, and then in high school, you got a chance to win 2 sectionals and 2 districts. 3 TVC titles, but as the stakes get higher, it gets a little more emotional. So how different did it feel winning the high school district championship versus winning the pastime travel tournament?
Good question.
Yeah,
that you guys won as a 16U team also.
Yeah, I think with the culture of travel ball, like I said, it's more 16 guys or 18 guys trying to get themselves out there versus their team. Maybe it's because in high school, it's an entire season working towards one goal versus, like I said, travel ball is, you lose Saturday, who cares? Go back the next weekend. Another chance. That could be it, but it was such a different feeling winning the district, even though it wasn't the end goal, end goal being the state championship or whatever. But it felt a lot more satisfying. I think maybe because you knew that there was a lot of work going into it, and that you were with your team and your brothers
you've grown up with. Yeah.
Versus you win the pastime, it's cool. We got a T-shirt. Let's go out to eat. That's it. Really.
I'll tell you another huge aspect of it too is the community. When you win that district tournament, you had a couple thousand people there, during the game, after the game, taking pictures with you. I mean, those are, that is more like the college ball feel. You're going to feel that type of experience more when you get to college. And so,
that's good stuff.
You staying on the recruiting talk for a second. What do you think was one of the hardest things about the recruiting process? I mean, was there anything that you didn't expect or things that you may have been surprised about that caught you by surprise?
Well, yeah, obviously, it's really tough to decide the next 4 years of your life. And I like to look at it as, would I be going here for school if I wasn't playing baseball?
Hold your thought. I want to highlight that. Pause it. Everybody listen to this. Hear it again. The question you need to ask yourself as you're being recruited is, would I want to go to school here if I were not playing baseball? Such a good question to ask.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're going to decide your next 4 years of your life, and once you get there, you're working towards a goal for the rest of your life after school. And if you're fortunate enough to play after school, that's cool, but chances are you're probably not going to play after school. It's such a small amount of people.
Look how excited everybody is about one guy.
Yeah,
in the last how many years?
The first guy in the Great Midwest Athletic Conference to go to the 25-man roster in the MLB.
Yeah, in the MLB. And there have been a lot more go to pro.
Yeah, minor league and everything. But that's one guy out of 8 or 9 schools. And so for me, it was because my love for baseball, it was tough to decide where I wanted to go to school versus where I wanted to go play baseball. Just because I needed to focus more on, okay, this is what I'm going to do to prepare myself for the rest of my life. In addition, I've got 4 more years to play baseball.
Right.
And I understand some of that is out of your hands too, because some schools if you really want to play ball and you obviously want to go to a school that you like, that has your major, you got to decide also, because some schools that may be higher on your list, they may not be wanting you. They may not be recruiting you.
Yeah.
They may not need a catcher in this class, or they may not be looking at you while other schools are looking at you. And so those are all things you have to navigate through as well and think about. I know you had to think through some of those too.
Yeah. So some of the schools that, you might be good enough to go to the school, but they might not need your position at that point. And that's just unfortunate, like you're saying. But yeah, it's tough, but the school part, I think, needs to outweigh the baseball part. As much as you love baseball, focus on the school part, and baseball is an addition, or whatever your sport may be. There's lots of guys, few guys that I know that would say, I'm going to go here just to play baseball. And unfortunately, most of those guys ended up dropping out, transferring.
That's a good point,
Yeah, but, some people will just go to a school because they want to play baseball and they love the game that much, and they make it there 4 years, and that's great. But lots of, focus on the school. Yeah. And that was tough for me, being a very baseball first guy, that I had to focus on school instead.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you see it every day, though. Professional athletes that retire early, or even when they retire, they have a plan B. They have something that they can fall back on, and that starts at their college education. And I know when like in the NFL and Major League Baseball, when rookies come in the league, they go to these seminars and things like that. They teach them how to handle their money and so forth. But they talk about how you handle yourself and how you prepare for life after the sport that you play. And the biggest part of that is your education. That's going to give you an opportunity to have that safety net more than anything else would.
Absolutely.
That's a great point.
Absolutely. Well, let's go back to youth ball, because we got just a few minutes left here. I mean, we could hold on to Brock, but I know you got another appointment you got to make it to here in a little bit. But when you look back at growing up, so you've played, and I've talked about this a little bit on previous episodes also, that you have had the opportunity to play. You and Kaylee both, your sister Kaylee, played recreational ball here in the Athens Sandlot, and then you transitioned from recreational ball to sort of a travel rec hybrid in the Athens Attack program that we created when you were 13, so 13 and 14. And then comes along your 15U year, and we had the added dynamic also of the fact that I was actually coaching those summer teams, and of course on those summer teams we had 9 kids that were coming into our high school program as 15-year-olds, and as an Ohio High School Athletic Association coach, paid or volunteer, it doesn't matter, if you have any contact at all with athletes on a team in a coaching role, then you're not permitted to coach more than 4 players at a time throughout the summer, unless you stay within a 10 date range. Then you can have as much time as you want, or as many players as you want within 10 days. You only have 10 days in the months of June and July. And so when we got to that point, we basically said, hey, we've got to either disband this thing. Either somebody else has to coach. We have to disband this thing, or all of you, and you all need to go find new teams. And that's kind of the direction that we went for a couple of reasons. Was one, we a lot of guys on the team, we all needed challenge to compete for a spot. We only had like 11 guys on the team, and they were all kind of, in their role and had it solidified. So if you go and you try out for another travel team, then you got to kind of compete a little bit. And I knew that would make us better as high school players. It wasn't a popular decision I'll be honest with you, it wasn't a popular decision among my friends who were, parents of the other players as well. And we all missed it. We missed being together, but part of that decision was also me knowing that as a high school coach, that if they were challenged, if they did go out and meet this challenge of trying out for other teams and having to compete for a spot, then that would just actually make them better,
Sure.
when they came back and played in high school. And that's just a philosophy that I had. It may not be everybody's philosophy.
And as they played throughout the year, they knew that someone was behind them that could take their spot.
Exactly. Exactly. So yeah, but that's kind of the high level view of the step-by-step process that you took, Brock. But when you look back at youth baseball, what do you think are some of the what are some of those youth memories, I guess, some of the important benchmarks or important focal points that, as you look back on it, these were important moments in my youth playing experience? And when I say youth, I'm talking from 7U all the way up to 18U.
Yeah, this was, you asked me this question last night, and I was trying to think about it. This was actually the toughest question for me to answer. There's few events that, stick out to me as maybe the most memorable. We were fortunate enough to win quite a few championships, get quite a few trophies, but, where are those trophies now? We don't have any of them. It might be in our garage or whatever, but,
we've actually tried to find places to put.
There's my 10-year, well, he's not 10, he's 9. His summer league team finished second in the league, and they gave him the trophy the other day, and that trophy is sitting on our dining room table. And I actually took a picture of it last Saturday as a little experiment. I'm going to see how long it lasts, how long it sets on that dining room table until he takes it into his room.
It'll be until your wife gets tired of seeing it.
Probably, yeah. But great point, Brock. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah. Those things don't mean much, at the end of the day. So go ahead and finish your thoughts. Sorry.
There's I was just trying to think hard. Was there a specific tournament? Was there a specific, home run? But there's two events that I actually remember, and it was funny because neither of them had to do with baseball. We were there for a baseball tournament, but it was the kids being kids that is what made it fun. We were there for baseball, but their first one was we're up in Findlay, and we had just finished a game or it had gotten rained out, and we were just out in the pool having fun. All of a sudden, a tornado comes through. I don't know if you remember this.
I do remember
it's
that.
It's kind of a funny story. A tornado comes through. We're playing in the pool. Parents are playing cornhole.
It was one of those pools that was half outside, half inside the hotel.
Okay, yeah.
So you couldn't get struck by lightning if you were inside, and so we were
just swim underneath the little mat.
So we were, there's a tornado. We were like, there's no way we're getting these games in. So we were just being kids then. We weren't thinking about baseball, but we were there with our baseball team, and so that's what it made it a memory. Another one was we were in Columbus, and all of a sudden a just torrential downpour comes down, and hail, and at that time they'd only had 4 fields that were turf, and so they had to try to get all those games in on the turf, on those 4 fields, and we were scheduled to play at, I think, midnight maybe.
Oh, yeah.
And it got pushed back to 2 in the morning.
Now, how old? Do you remember how old you were?
I think I was 12 or 13.
I think it was 12U year, and this was a nation's one of those state tournaments, and 80 some teams I think in this particular division, and they had to get another. I think they had to get another 40 games in, and they only had 4 fields to do it on.
Wow.
Well, you had to take games, all-day games on 32 fields and put those on 4 fields and try to get them in. And so I think it's going on 2 in the morning, and we're warming up. And all of a sudden, the umpires are like, no, we're not doing this. Yeah. So they're like, all right, you guys can play.
We were so thankful for those officials.
Yeah, you can play at 7 a.m.
Thanks a lot. Until they said that.
Yeah, we're like, dang.
Yeah. This sounds like co-ed softball.
Yeah. But it's funny.
Do you remember, did we win that game?
I don't even know.
Huh.
Yeah. And so it's funny that you ask, I've played hundreds and hundreds of games in my 20 years of being alive. And it's funny that the 2 memories that stand out to me don't have anything to do with baseball, but it's with my teammates and the baseball friends that are there. And, I think about your article you wrote about just having fun.
Fundamentals.
Yeah. And, maybe focus on the enjoyment of the game and having fun with the game versus, yelling at your 12-year-old kid to get his glove down, because you're not perfect. Why do you expect him to be perfect?
Yeah.
And,
I think a point of that article too was kind of going back to something we talked about a minute ago. If you work on the fun, and no one thinks about passion as a skill or as something that you develop, but I've said for a couple years now that the greatest thing that we can do for our kids is help them love the things that they do. Mm-hmm. And if you can develop passion in a kid, they're going to get to college and be willing to do what it takes to be able to play the game. We worry about how they feel and their swing mechanics and things like that. Help them to have fun.
Yeah, it's important to, it's obviously important to have a foundation of your fundamentals and everything. But if you teach the kid to love the game and to have fun with that game, then that's going to help him so much more in the years coming than yelling at him to get his glove down and ground ball.
That's a great point. They're going to want to keep playing. Yeah. They're going to. You'll run into the kid that every now and then, the one anomaly kid that, gets yelled at all the time. About everything he's done wrong, even things he's done right, gets critiqued in a negative way. And that kid makes it through. I've seen that happen. You'll see those kids, and they go ahead and play just because they personally actually love the game, despite what dad or coach has been doing, to them throughout their years. But those kids that are developing a love for it, that love isn't going to develop if you don't provide the enjoyment aspect. It's such a great. So in many ways, that the kinds of things that the coach that wrote you that text that you read at the beginning, the kinds of transitions that he's making into help bring more enjoyment into what he's doing. Because I'm guessing that sounded like a football coach. He said water breaks.
I'll divulge it. It was a football coach.
So, okay. Which is really cool because he's listening to a podcast where we spend 90% of our time talking about baseball or softball. But as you can tell, it applies to athletics across the board, what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
But I love the fact that in listening to 2 episodes, basically what he's gained from that is I've got to figure out ways to make this more enjoyable because that's what's going to create the longevity for these kids, these youth players that I'm coaching if we want them to play in high school and continue playing. This is part of my role now is to help do this.
It's just like anything else too, because different kids develop that love at different times. We actually, I never mentioned it because it would kind of ruin the tone of my article if I did, but there was one kid that he had a lot of fun, but at the same time, he actually said some things that led you to believe he was disappointed that he didn't have one coach that was focused on, pushing them to play harder, to play better.
Yeah.
And this is a kid that
would have been me.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you.
Well,
I wanted to have fun. But by gosh, I wanted to win.
Sure. And this kid does want to win. Yeah. He shows it in rec ball and summer league and these tournaments we go to. He's out there to win.
It would not have been fun to me.
Yeah.
Some kids it's okay.
Yeah.
Some kids they can handle it. I mean, it's just fun. It's more about the community and being the community aspect and being part of your friends and everything. And that's what energizes you. That's part of what energized me as a player. But for the most part, you better be doing your best.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna kick you in the rear end until you do because we're gonna win this game too.
I hear you. And that's the challenge of coaching. You have to approach the game with different kids in different ways.
Yeah.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, I know that happened with you a little bit too, and sometimes, Brock.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, just maybe one last question, because I think we got through a lot of the questions that we wanted to ask. But right now you're as a junior in college, so you're still playing, but you're in kind of an interesting moment in your life where you're also transitioning into coaching a little bit. You got a chance to coach an 11U travel team. That's also it's kind of like a lot like the team that you have, Pat, where a lot of these kids go to the same school district. So they're friends. I mean, there's some that from different school districts, but for the most part, it's run more like a local travel team, I will say. And there were 12 U's, right? 12 U's. So 11U last year where you helped with them, and then this year you had more of a role as a co-coach. So we've talked a little bit about fun. We've talked a little bit about instilling the fundamentals into them, being hard on kids as well as knowing when to extend grace. What do you think right now? What have you taken from your own experience as a player and now thinking about coaching, transitioning that into coaching from the various coaches that you've had as well? What are the most important things we should be instilling into young players that you've actually been doing to your 12-year-olds?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I feel like, hopefully I could have taught those kids a few things, but I learned so much from those kids and from experiencing coaching. And if you asked me a year ago,
that's the way it works.
If we had this podcast a year ago today, I guarantee you I wouldn't have said have fun at all. Never would have said had fun. It would have been ground ball after ground ball after ground ball, pitch, everything, just baseball. And that's, I feel like, what the kids actually taught me. And if there's one thing, like I said, if there's one thing to teach those kids, it was the love for the game.
Mm-hmm.
And to use the team I coached this year for an example, we weren't the greatest. We didn't have a winning record, but I think that, so our last tournament of the year, everybody stayed in the hotel. The hotel actually had a huge water park. So the kids are having fun and everything. We actually ended up winning that last tournament, but the way that those kids played the last tournament, they looked like a completely different team. And I think, looking back, maybe that enjoyment they were having transferred over to the field. They were playing better because they were having fun and they were enjoying it, on the field and off the field.
And for each other.
Yeah, and for each other, yeah. And, you'll have, like you said, you'll have some guys that are different, like, like cousin Gavin. He wouldn't have fun unless he was playing good. He was having, he's very, very competitive, which is great to see in him. But then there's other kids that they would mope around if they weren't having fun. They wouldn't enjoy it if they weren't having fun. And so, that's where I kind of learned and kind of changed where, instead of win to have fun to win. And, that kind of,
and it becomes and what you're saying too is I know what you're saying is a lot of that change in mindset of how you coach is a change in your approach.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I were to ask you, you mentioned what's more important to get, to hit them, make sure every kid gets 40 ground balls in practice, make sure they're having fun. Mm-hmm. I know that there are probably people listening to saying, you got to hit them 40 ground balls. And you're not saying don't do that.
Yeah.
Because it's not either or, but it's the approach of how can we make sure that we're doing this in a way that they're enjoying it.
Yeah, it's not hit the kid ground balls and say, "Are you having fun?" If he's not, let him go. It's make it
right.
It's
right.
Coach him in a way that makes it fun for him and it adapts
because they need the ground balls.
Yeah.
In the same way that they need.
You got to have
fun.
the fundamentals and have that baseline.
Yeah.
But enjoy it.
Well, you're learning something at 20 years old that I learned at 44. So,
well, you may have learned a little sooner than that, but.
I'm telling you now,
36.
By his junior year of high school was when I first started feeling like I started to understand what coaching was about.
Yeah.
So, well, Brock, it's been great having you on. I want to make sure that Pat gets a chance to ask anything or say anything else, but also want to make sure that you get a chance to say anything else that you'd like to say before we close this thing out today.
I'm good, Brock. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully I could spread a little bit of knowledge of what I got, but yeah, have some fun.
Go Battlers, right?
Yeah, go Battlers.
Wait a minute, what's a battler?
I don't even know.
Come on.
You got to find that out.
What's your mascot's name? What's his name?
Skirmish.
Skirmish. So
it's, they say it's just basically a soldier in the Civil War, I guess. Yeah. Because actually, fun fact, Philippi was the first land battle of the Civil War.
And some are not. It's not listed in some histories.
Yeah.
Of being a battle because it wasn't
started with an accidental shot
because it wasn't really huge, but they call it a skirmish.
Ah, interesting.
And so Skirmish is the Alderson Broaddus Battlers'
his name
mascot. He's a pretty cool looking character too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's not a wimpy looking mascot. I like it.
It's a man mascot.
I like it. Yeah, that's right. So
well, hey, good luck this season, bro.
Yeah,
absolutely.